Good evening, everyone. Please rise for the pledge, and if you choose, stay standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have Pastor Rod Warnberg. Hi.
Thank you all for this opportunity. Please join me for a prayer of invocation. Father, thank you for your goodness to us. Father, I want to thank you for these who lead our city, and I pray, Father, that you would help them as they lead and guide our city. I pray, Father, that you would be made wisdom to them. I pray, Father, that you would help them to lead us into a bright future. We pray that you would be about their decisions and about the things that happen here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Vice Mayor McMahon. Here. Councilmember Friedel. Present. Councilmember Grisbowski.
Present.
Councilmember Calavianakis.
Here.
Councilmember Toth.
Here.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Here.
Anyone wishing to address the council regarding items listed on the agenda or under call to the public should fill out a request to comment card located in the back of the council chambers and hand it to the town clerk prior to consideration of that agenda item. When your name is called, please approach the podium, speak into the microphone, and state your name for the public record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is the policy of the mayor and the council to not comment on items brought forth under call to the public. However, staff can be directed to report back to the council at a future date or to schedule items raised for a future council agenda.
Thank you, Linda, very much. So we start, as always, with our reports from our town manager and council. Rachel?
Good evening. I just had one announcement. I wanted to thank our mayor and council that attended our staff luncheon, where we honored a number of staff who had milestones, years of service. We had a number of staff that were celebrating 5, 10, 15, and even one that had 20 years of service with us here as the town. And I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great celebration of our dedicated staff and a reminder of how many locals we have and how much work goes in every single day, from seen and unseen. So thanks for joining us.
I have no report this week. Thank you.
Being respectful of our time, instead of talking about all of the volunteer stuff that I've done over the past couple of weeks, I try to keep my comments pertinent to my duties directly here on the council. During the last 2 weeks, I attended the League Budget and Finance Economic Development Policy meeting, where only one item was brought up and it was shot down immediately. In all honesty, the town manager didn't even know how it was brought to the table, so we could talk about that later if you'd like to, Mayor. I'm sure you'll hear about it. The town manager, the interim town manager, and I met with a couple of the Republic Services representatives. I attended virtually 2 league legislative update calls, and last week I did the first tier suburbs meeting with the National League of Cities. I'm not actually on their council, but they allow me to attend, and it's always intriguing because it's not the big cities, the Phoenixes and whatnot, it's the suburbs like us that are immediately outside, so that's always an interesting call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended several events, including Paws on the Avenue. It was a dog show on the Avenue in front of Classy Jazzy, and we're hoping for a bigger turnout next year for that. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of cute dogs out there as well. Attended the recent school board meeting. Like Rachel, I attended the Town Service Award luncheon recognition for the town employees. I had no idea we had employees that were there for 10, 15, and 20 years, so that's really a testament to the town and the staff. And along that line, Mayor, bear with me, I want to make a statement. You know, we talk about our capital improvement budget and our buildings and our roads and how valuable they are and our parks. There's one thing that we don't talk about that I think is very important to this town, and that's our employees. We have a great group of employees here, and they help deliver all the services to this town. There's a lot of volunteers, there's a lot of hours and work that go into that. And I don't know if anybody in this room realizes the fact that our town manager did not take the COLA increase recently. I hope I'm not embarrassing you, Rachel. But that's a testament to a good manager who stood up and said, you know what, I'm not going to take that increase. So kudos to you, Rachel. I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that. I also want to mention the fact that recently Brenda Kay and I delivered home-delivered meals. That was so rewarding, a couple hours that we spent delivering meals to seniors in this town. So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities for stuff like that in this town. And then the one final thing, Mayor, I want to say is that the Arizona state budget got passed this past week, and in there was a line item for $10 million going to the Dark Skies Discovery Center. So that is going to happen. So we're excited about that. So it looks like it's a big step toward them getting their funding in place. So look for that and future updates on that as well. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We had a new memory cafe for the dementia-friendly group that was really, we had a great turnout, and it was really a great conversation with the caretakers, and we look forward to having many more of them. It's part of our initiative as dementia-friendly town, so to have it be such a success was really rewarding for all of us. I also, like Sharon met with the Republic representative. We had a good conversation, and I also want to congratulate all the employees with all the major milestones from 5 years to 20 years. It was very, very impressive to be able to honor them, to see their dedication and how much they love working for our town. And like Jerry said, we really have one of the best staffs, I think, in Maricopa County. So thank you for that. And also, I've attended the legislative calls, and I was very, very excited to see that we have $10 million allocated in the state budget for our Discovery Dark Sky Center. That's just an amazing feat, and it is going to do so much for our town. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Hello, everybody, and thanks for attending tonight. Once again, we have almost a full occupancy. Everybody on YouTube and streaming live, this is what good governance is all about, is a concerned and active citizenry. So thank you very much for being good, active citizens. I also went to the town of Fountain Hills length of service milestone celebration, celebrating our employees. It's a great way to acknowledge the years of honorable service to our community. I want to keep it brief tonight, but I do have some opinions on our town staff and some contentiousness that's happened lately. And I wrote an open letter to the town staff, and it will be in tomorrow's Fountain Hills Times in the letters to the editor section. So that's why I can keep it brief tonight. I did attend a planning and zoning meeting, and it was a really insightful meeting. I know if you guys come here and you like this kind of public engagement, the planning and zoning is really where things get started. And I would suggest, it's online, it's on YouTube, and it's of course live, but it's a good place to get your updates on what's coming down the pipe. I did go to the school board meeting, and I know that recently there's talk of this bond issue, and I would just ask to the people, whether you're for it or whether you're against it, to just be courteous and respectful of each other. I know that there's a lot of contentiousness regarding that too, and I think it's uncalled for. Everybody wants what's best for the kids. We just have different ways of going about doing it. And so let's just honor each other, let's respect each other, and treat each other with dignity. The last thing is I did also attend the Pause on the Avenue, as well as Brett Kershank and the mayor and Scott Schlossberger, who were the judges, and they picked wisely. Hannah, Jerry, and I were the dog handlers, and we got the dogs staged into the right spot. I don't know if this was intentional or not. I didn't ask, but it was the same day as the Kentucky Derby. And so everybody at the Derby has the hats and the outfits, and the same thing happened that day. It was just a wonderful event because all the pet owners dressed their pets like themselves. And it was such a fun event to see. And it was just, again, Fountain Hills at its very best. And so, like Jerry said, we'll publish it a little more next year, and hopefully we'll get more dogs and more owners. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Everyone, thank you for coming, especially the smiling students here. I'll steal the Councilwoman's thunder and say you can always stay for the whole meeting, too. So just, very quickly, was able to attend the Fountain Hills Coalition. The Chamber of Commerce had a ribbon cutting last Thursday, was able to attend. Was able to meet with the Sheriff's Department, learned quite a bit about those details there. And there's a whole long list of community events able to take part on. And it's just amazing to have such an active and participant-driven community that we do so many fun events. So just keep it up, everyone.
Thank you. To remind me to start on this end next time. I'm always starting over there, so I'll let you guys go first next time. Thought you were going to say it was the Kentucky Derby because the winning dog looked like it could have been a horse. It was a pretty big one, so it was fun. I realized that at the last meeting, I made a mistake when we were talking about our road bonds. We had our, we have all this other stuff that we talked about with the budget, and I said we were not going to be going for a street bond. And I said 2024, but I meant 2023. So that's this year, and the school district will be discussing what they're going to do, but we won't be doing anything this November. I attended a housing policy briefing. It was regarding short-term rentals. It was really good. A lot of different cities, and we're actually in pretty good shape with our ordinance. They were just from around the country, so some of them haven't come as far, I guess you'd say, as Arizona. Quarterly East Valley Mayor's meeting, we had that. We had our Mayor's Education Roundtable, which this time was at ASU Helios Decision Center. I've never been there. A lot of good information I'll share with the superintendent. Mayor's Youth Council graduation, that was great. Congratulations for all your volunteer hours. Some of the seniors will be moving on, and I'll probably see some of the others next year, and they'll be presenting tonight, so that's awesome. Capital Times had a webinar about Prop 400E, and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, and Sharon knows about this, and mayors and supervisors had a meeting. Some of that information will be in our presentation that we're having today from ED. And I had my first league executive committee meeting, and there was a lot of information about that bill that's pretty much wipes out any local control on zoning, so we're all trying to keep our eye on that one. I had got a lot of information that I did send to the council, and hopefully they will distribute. It's kind of a lot, but it's important to know about this because I have a feeling some of it's going to go through, so we'll have to keep our eye on that. So really appreciate it. So our new thing is for the Stellar students to be part of the reports, which is right now. And this is our last one for the year. And we have 6 kids, 2 from each school. And I'm going to start with McDowell Mountain School. Angela has the certificates, and when I call your name, please come up. She'll give it to you, and then just wait up here, and then the newspaper will take a picture when we're done. So I'm going to start with Aubriana Rischau. I want to say that right. Is Aubriana here? Yes, come on up, honey. Aubriana is a perfect example of a stellar student. Not only does she always do her very best on her work, she's extremely polite, respectful, and considerate of others. Aubriana goes out of her way to be helpful, and her kindness is recognized by her peers. In class, she shows great skill and effort in whatever we're working on and offers wonderful ideas in class discussions. She's an absolute pleasure to have in class. Aubriana, thank you. You stay right up there, honey. Next from McDowell, we have Damon Specs. Is Damon here? Hey, come on up, Damon. Damon is a stellar student because of the positive example he serves and the growth he has shown in art. He demonstrates what respect looks and sounds like and makes efforts to inspire others to do the same. He tries his best and perseveres when met with challenges. He's open to suggestion and shows great appreciation for the help. It is an honor to nominate Damon for being a respectful, kind, responsible, and safe, stellar student. Damon. Now we'll go to the middle school, and Sophia Dwyer. Is Sophia here? Yay, come on up. Sophia is an amazing student and citizen. She is kind, considerate, and very hardworking. She cares about her grades and her classmates. She is, in capitals, a stellar student. That's Sophia. Next from the middle school is Jake Harnett. Is Jake here? Come on up, Jake. Jake is a great student. He works hard on his assignments and takes his education seriously. Jake is kind and respectful to his peers and to staff. We think Jake is a stellar student. That's Jake. And now we have from the high school, Alex Brownstein. Is Alex here? Yay. Alex is a very consistent worker and is dedicated to doing his best in all situations. He is someone who sees the value in education and becoming the best that he can be in whatever he chooses to do. That's Alex in the high school. Our last student couldn't make it because she had cheer commitments. Her name is Riga Homyak, and she's from the high school. Riga is always upbeat and is a very reliable person in helping with attendance. She works great with others, and she's a wonderful person to have around. She loves dance and music and is quick to compliment others. So let's give Riga a hand. All right. You guys ready for this? You guys ready for school to be almost over? Yes, you are? I can't believe it. Guys on there? One more. Wonderful. Congratulations, everyone. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Next, we have our presentations, and the first one we're going to have is from the Fountain Hills Medical Center. Rachel, did you want to introduce?
I think our team is here.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you for
Thank you for
coming.
being with us.
Looking forward to hearing.
Very much. Yeah. Can I just go? Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, Madam Mayor, Council people, and town staff, I am very grateful to have been invited to come talk to you guys, and it's a little bit exciting, actually very exciting. The last time we were here, I was here about 3 years ago. We were looking to get this property by Saguaro and Trevino rezoned to allow us to be able to bring the first emergency room, 24/7 emergency room to the town of Fountain Hills. Then the second time I was here, we were hoping to operate for 24/7. And we were very lucky that you guys caught onto the vision, which is a testament to the leadership of the town, and agreed with us that it was a service that was needed. And I'm back here today to tell you guys that we've been open for 2 years as of last month. And I wanted to kind of report directly back to you guys as far as what we're doing, how we're doing, and what the plan is going forward. So, so for the 2 years we've been open, we've had 20,000 patient encounters as of last month. And for this next year, if our current volume keeps up without additional increases, we're on track to see another 12,000 patient encounters in our third year. So that is really amazing. Since we opened, the opportunity that exists, and I'm just going to read through this just because I understand I have 10 minutes, so I'm trying to get through it very quickly for any questions. So since we opened, the opportunities that exist in the healthcare space here in our town has been recognized by a lot of other healthcare organizations and providers, and it has had kind of a downstream effect and resulted in additional healthcare services being offered by these organizations here in our community. So that's exciting as well, because the more services for our residents, the better it is for everybody. We have had tremendous support from Fountain Hills and McDowell Reservation residents. While our share of patients from Fountain Hills and McDowell Reservation is about 60%, the actual number of patients has continued to grow over the past 2 years. We are also starting to see a lot of patients coming in from Scottsdale and Mesa, and it has continued to steadily increase as well. About 25 to 30% of our patients right now are coming from Scottsdale. About 10 to 15% are coming from Mesa and some other further out areas like North Phoenix and sometimes Chandler. The one thing that keeps bringing them here, or at least looking our way, is that Fountain Hills is now being recognized as a place where there are a lot of healthcare options, and most importantly, you can actually get those services here fast and efficiently. So many patients from surrounding areas that do come here have expressed surprise about, some people don't even know Fountain Hills exists. I mean, I did my residency here for 3 years, I never heard of Fountain Hills. So it's actually pretty amazing when people get over the hill, they are pretty surprised that there is actually a town called Fountain Hills, and some of them have lived here for 5 years. So, so they are very happy to have healthcare options and the efficiency of the facilities we have. We are investing in outreach and awareness about healthcare in Fountain Hills as an extension of, obviously, the services we offer. We continue to sponsor programs here in town, as well as, especially in some of the elementary schools, middle school, high schools in the Scottsdale area that is closer to us, including some charter schools such as Basis Scottsdale. We continue to see an increase of pediatric visits from the surrounding areas, and some of these parents are coming to Fountain Hills for the first time. And I know there's been a desire to attract young families to our town, and this certainly is not, it's not having a negative impact, that's for sure. So we continue to prefer to refer patients to subspecialists that operate offices in Fountain Hills. This is one of the things we look at when we make referrals for patients that are not already assigned to subspecialist providers. Majority of our prescriptions, over 90%, even from people that are outside of the town, are sent to pharmacies here. A lot of times patients will come in for like an acute illness and they want to be able to just go to the pharmacy on the street, get the medicine on their way back. So this continues, this adds to support of local commercial pharmacies, and it helps to obviously keep those businesses here in town. Specifically, patients that do visit us express satisfaction about how neat, clean, and organized everything is, and they feel like they're not climbing over each other to get the same quality of healthcare that some places you wait 4 or 5 hours for. The most common question we continue to get is whether we accept all insurance for emergency services. The answer remains yes. And in fact, the NSA law that was signed by President Trump before he left office mandates that emergency services are covered by insurance companies at the minimum of their in-network rates, regardless of whether the ER or ER services are provided by contracted facilities or not. The second question we get are from patients who have high deductible plans and what programs we have to help them deal with patient responsibilities and that they anticipate will be assigned to them by insurance plans. In response to this, we have continued. So for example, in 21 and 22, when we were still trying to get our policies around this, we actually forgave 100% of patient deductibles and responsibilities from all the visits from 21 and 22 for ER visits. And this amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Since 23, we have instituted an emergency room access high deductible hardship discount, which is applied immediately to patient responsibilities regardless of the ability to pay. And then there is always an option for people to pay 100% of their patient responsibility if they wish. So this is where it basically supports our goal to make sure that patients are able to access the emergency services without having to choose between paying for their rent and paying for healthcare services. So what comes next? Telemedicine, we're hoping to roll out our telemedicine program by the end of the month. The goal, initially, it's going to be Monday through Friday during business hours. These are for acute care issues. It's only going to be for Arizona residents. And the idea is, there are some people that work and they're not able to go see their doctors. Some people want to talk to a doctor for like a sore throat or some stuff in between work, and they'll have the ability to do that. Ultimately, we intend to have this service 24 hours, hopefully within 6 months of initial implementation. We are hoping to have start accepting ambulance services by late summer to early fall. This will be very important for a lot of our residents that would prefer to be seen in our community rather than going outside of it. We're finishing up the AIMS process, and as this progresses, we'll let everyone know how it's going. As other healthcare institutions develop their services, we are starting to observe, and we observe the referral patterns of some of these additional facilities, whether they primarily refer within Fountain Hills or outside of Fountain Hills. We're also developing ideas on specific programs we're going to have in phase. It's a sign of good omen. Phase 2 of our facility. So the general ideas of what we're looking to do in phase 2 includes having inpatient facilities, subspecialty clinics, general surgery, orthopedic surgery, cardiology services, and stuff like that. So we are still developing this program, and as we need help from council in bringing these services here in town, let you guys know. So the last thing I have is to talk about how the town can help. It's, the most important thing which we have been very grateful to the town for has been to continue to feature our services and the convenience that we offer in the town's outreach programs, to understand that even though we're privately owned, really by the physicians that work there, we are still offering a public service that is not unlike, say, like a privately owned ambulance service that responds to 911. When you have an emergency, it doesn't matter whether it's who owns it. You have an emergency, and if you could be seen in an efficient manner and not have to sell your kidney to pay for it, I think that's something that's very helpful for everyone. Continue to use us as experts on healthcare issues facing the community. Follow our Facebook and social media posts. If you've had a positive experience, we put on there. If you've had a negative experience, call us. We address everything. We appreciate all the positive comments, but we really, as a facility, focus on the negative ones, and we try to work through them. Continue to encourage other healthcare facilities to keep their referral within the community, which is not only in the best interest of the patients, because it's always better to get care close to home. It also allows all the other businesses to want to continue to invest because they know they're going to get those referrals. And I think that creates kind of a rebounding effect. We'll also continue collaborating with local emergency response systems such as our fire department and our first responders to streamline processes and make sure that we are being as helpful as possible to supporting their effort in the community. So on behalf of all the staff at our ER, I would like to thank you all for your continued support and commitment to our facility. It's been a pleasure serving this community. We look forward to continue to do this, provide quality, affordable healthcare close to home. And that's all I have. Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions or comments for the doctor?
Yeah, I got a quick comment. Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thank you so much for serving our community. Really appreciate having that facility here. Last month, Amanda and Betsy Laveau from the Chamber and I went there and on our business retention development services, and I did get a chance to tour the facility, and it's a top-notch, current. Even the lighting in the rooms is from the outdoor lighting to give people less stress, and so it's well thought out. It's just a wonderful facility, and I think we're lucky to have it. When you mentioned telemedicine, are you able to prescribe drugs on that, or is that just for consultations?
Yes. If we're able to make a diagnosis, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
We'll be able to prescribe medicine. So say somebody's having a sore throat or something, and they could call in, dial in, pick a physician, and they'll get assessed. And if the doctor feels that a medication is necessary, it could be UTI, whatever acute care situation is, they'll prescribe it, and the person will need to come in. What's actually nice about it is when we roll it out, it will be cash pay only initially. Eventually, within 6 months, we're hoping to start accepting insurance once we work out all that kink with the insurance companies. But whatever the person, it's going to be a flat $65 system. Somebody pays $65 for a consult, and then they happen to, within 24 hours, either not feeling better, the doctor feels like, this is something that needs further evaluation, when they come in, that $65 will be deducted from their patient responsibility. So you're not paying twice. So that's a way of also making sure that patients are
Right.
penalized for using it.
Yeah, that's good to know for just the people that are listening in tonight. And I know they just passed the veterinarian telemedicine bill
Right.
this past week, and they can't write prescriptions, however, so they do a significant restriction. It's nice to know that you don't have that. The other thing, and this will be my last question, but just so that the people know, I know you said that you take all insurance. Does that include access for people that have less means?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We are contracted with Access.
Okay, thank you.
And for emergency services, regardless, it has, insurance has to cover it. That's government rule. So, excellent.
Thank you, Mayor. So you had 20,000 patient encounters in the last 2 years. How many doctors do you have down there?
So we have, there's a 24-hour physician available in the ER. So, we have 7 ER doctors and 4 work full-time there. So there's always a doctor in the house, regardless. We only, whenever you come to our ER, you're guaranteed to see a physician. You're not. And in our clinic, we operate both, doctors and nurse practitioners in the clinic. But in our emergency room, it's all physicians. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you also because with what you're doing with the ambulance, and again, we all hear anecdotes about how great they are, and we're really pleased that they're in our community right now. Our next presentation is Ryan and the Mayor's Youth Council, and I think I just saw Christopher had to leave, but come on up.
Left me a slide.
Good.
All right, well, thanks for having us. Good evening, everybody, Madam Mayor, council members. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to present here today. The presentation you're going to see is actually created by the Mayor's Youth Council, so I'm going to do you a favor and let them present it. So you're going to be hearing from them. We're going to start with one of our seniors who's graduating, with Anna Williams. Is going to come up and get us started.
Hi. So first we wanted to start off by talking about BAM Kazam. So every year we go to do a team building experience, and we decided to go to BAM Kazam this year. So we focused on leadership opportunities, trying to give people different ways so that they can show improvement in their leadership and just see who would kind of lead the group for the rest of the year. We also wanted to build our group dynamic. We had a lot of new members this year, so it was really important to kind of introduce them to the way that we kind of discuss things and try and help make them part of our group. We learned a lot about teamwork, leadership, and communication, especially when trying to solve all the puzzles that are involved in this BAM Kazam. And this also included a lot of problem solving.
Hey, could you pull the microphone a little closer, please? Thank you.
This was a very fun experience where a team of teenagers came together to present our flag and represent our town and our organization. We also, in addition to this, were able to connect and network with other cities. So.
Yes, Christopher had to leave. But the Teen Takeover, it's a big event. It's the second year we've done it, and it's something that is run solely by the Mayor's Youth Council. So they do all the planning. They do everything it takes to get it going and have a really fun event over at the community center. Close the whole place down, open it just for teens for one night. We'd like to thank our event partners during that. We had Fountain Hills Coalition was out, Sips Eatery, Fountain Hills Library, Senor Taco, Pizza Pizza, and the Playground Dart Zone, which I spent most of my time in there in the dart war battles. I think we got a few pictures here to show you as well. So there's a few pictures of the night just showing how awesome and fun and amazing it was. We had a group from Phoenix teens come over as well, and we had a bunch of raffle prizes, and they pretty much clean house with a lot of the top prizes. So a lot of fun, really great night, something to do for the teens in town, as they say, with which isn't always the case for them. So something that's all planned and coordinated by the Youth Council.
So Toastmasters was an event specifically for the Mayor's Youth Council, and it's where we learned how to succeed in public speaking. So Kathy H. was the presenter who was teaching us these things, and what she did was she used her own presentation in order to show us how we should be giving presentations to people. As it says on the slide, it just made us more creative, more confident with public speaking, and it was a pretty successful event that we put on.
So throughout the year as well, we have done many community service events. Some highlights of that, it was the Back to School Bash, where we ran the inflatables, Make a Difference Day, where we went and we cleaned up the high school, Spooky Blast, where we also ran the inflatables, and New Year's Eve, where we ran a video game station.
To continue on to the community service, we ran the teen takeover, so we did that. Also for Irish Fest, we helped at the inflatables and helped put wristbands on people coming in. And at the Adopt a Street, we helped pick up trash around the fountain. And we worked at the egg extravaganza, and actually one of our members, Christopher, he was the Easter Bunny, so he got to hop around. And we helped out at the Earth Day event here. We helped kids with crafts made out of recycled materials.
This year, the Mayor's Youth Council has served 296 hours.
Perfect, yeah, and so again, thank you for having us here. It's I've actually had the pleasure of getting to know these guys over just the past few months, and I'm overseeing this group, and I don't think I have enough time to really go into how incredible this group of, I was going to call them kids, but how great of human beings these guys are. I mean, in addition to everything you've seen, they have, they're in multiple AP classes. They're heavily involved in clubs and sports, and a lot of them even have part-time jobs on top of that, and I'm sure that's why Chris had to run out. There's a lot of commitments that they have, and so they're doing an amazing job. I mean, they really, they're dedicated, and they really want to make a difference in the town for the youth, and it shows in everything they do, that we do with that. So thank you, Mayor, for always, promoting this program and the positive impact it's making in the town. So thank you.
Well, speaking of committed, you are also, and we really appreciate all the work that you've done and just the variety of all of the activities. Did anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you. As I say all the time, you model this behavior. It means so much to this community to see these young folks going out there, putting in all these hours, and also just top to bottom doing events like that when you're getting every part of that, and that's been really successful. So wish you the best for the summer and for whatever you have in store, and we'll see some of you next year. And again, thank you, Ryan, so much.
Of course, and you're not going to get out of the photo, though, so we got to come to the front for a quick little photo. Come on, guys. You got to do it. I know.
Amanda's all ready and raring to go for our economic development. Thank you. Bye. Our update, our third quarter update.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the audience. So here tonight for our third quarter update, which is from January to March of this year. But as always, if somebody's new tuning in, if something's relevant and just happened last month or this month, I will mention it. Before I get started, I did want to thank Councilmember Friedel and Councilmember Calavianakis for your comments. As an employee, as a Fountain Hills resident, and also as your Economic Development Director, it takes 7 seconds for people to make an impression in our brand. My job is to try to attract new residents, visitors, and businesses. Some of the divisiveness has made it challenging. With that, we'll go into business attraction. So typically, I'm acknowledging some of our new businesses, but wanted to do something a little bit different. I had shared this slide during the Community Economic Development Workshop in January, which was by invitation only, but wanted to mention some of this. So again, our residents are understanding about some of our business attraction, and as we begin to move forward in the fall to see the proposed strategy. So lead generation, that happens through a few processes. So one, it's your economic development staff, which is a mighty team of two, but us actually initiating contact. And so over the past 6 months, we have reached out to national developers. And I'll tell you, sometimes you can get ignored. These developers have responded to us. They thanked us for being proactive, and then acknowledged too that, you know what, Fountain Hills was not on their map. And so if they're doing work in Chandler, Tempe, now we've raised awareness, and so they're open to having some future conversations with us. We have also reached out, so again, your economic development staff, to some restaurant and retail, a total of 6, and again, making some progress, a few of them acknowledging us. Just so everyone's aware, I can't always divulge the information. This is as much as I can share. And that's just because until it's formal and there's things on the dotted line, we don't want to get people too excited. Or sometimes people can get a little upset and it can impact negotiations. And we don't want that. This benefits our 24,000 residents, not just 1 or 2. Related to the industrial, the 4, staff has been able to respond to proposals from the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, GPEC, the mayor mentioned them previously. And then also they'll route stuff through the Arizona Commerce Authority, so ACA. There have been other opportunities that unfortunately we have not been able to respond to. We've had the square footage, we have the vacancy, but why we were not is we did not have the proper zoning. And so again, so there's no surprises. This is being recorded. We can say today that I said this. Later on in the fall, we'll be talking about opportunities of rezoning, an overlay district. I understand sometimes those words can be a bit scary, but we'll get to that a little bit more in another slide. Our business retention and expansion efforts, again, are going wonderful with our partners at the Fountain Hills Chamber of Commerce. Councilmember Calavianakis is currently attending those site visits. Just a reminder to council, and then just our folks in the back and those tuning in. What we're doing is we're inviting our policy leaders 9 out of 10 times when we're meeting with business owners. The issues they're addressing, I can't tackle by myself. Economic development is a team sport. And so having our policy makers hearing firsthand what our business owners are struggling with is helpful. And so we continue to see the 3 themes, so communication, and really it was about events. I may take that off because I feel like we've tackled that with our spring and fall guide, which was mentioned during our joint session. But our businesses, specifically our restaurants, say, we don't care who puts on the events, just let us know, especially when they're very big, because again, you see that there's workforce issues. They want to make sure that they staff up and people are having a wonderful experience, that maybe our visitors become residents or our visitors come back. And then I've had on the slide, usually downtown, and so now I want to start using the official name. So TAMA, the Avenue Merchant Association. Again, last year, we're working together for about 6 months. They formalized, have officers, and then you'll see they just approved, I believe it was last month, this logo that you'll start seeing around town. And then as Councilmember Friedel mentioned, the first event launched sort of under this umbrella was Pause on the Avenue. All right, apartment occupancy rate, I want to point out a couple, won't list each one. But first, Gunsight last quarter was over 70%. Casa del Lago was over 80%. These are our newer apartments. And as you can see, I know I sound like a broken record, but again, anyone tuning in, we have a supply and demand issue. If somebody is wanting to rent, is looking at apartments, townhomes, condos, it's becoming a bit of a struggle to find space. Some of these locations just have one availability, and if there's something you need now, it's just not available. And last thing on this slide, you'll see Pillar at Fountain Hills. So several months ago, Keystone Properties, who owned the Havenly, which is across the corner, sold, and Pillar at Fountain Hills has taken over. Some of the council members have asked me, how's it going? Asked about the staff. What is nice is most of the staff has remained. Some of the folks, of course, with Keystone have gone off on their merry way, one person with Cushman and Wakefield, but some of the other employees have been elevated up and promoted, and they're loving their new employer. All right, vacancy rate, existing buildings. So the first column, again, we'll just do a quick reminder. That is from CoStar, one of our leading commercial real estate groups, who's able to track nationally our vacancy rates. You'll remember probably in the fall, as staff began looking at this, there was a bit of a red flag that these were a bit low for Fountain Hills. And so what we've had to do and continue to do is we're having to manually go out, because some of our commercial brokers are choosing just to place a sign, and if somebody drives by and sees it, that's how they know. And unfortunately, they're not listing it. So again, think of your home. If you're just putting a little for sale sign, is that really gonna do it for you? Or do you wanna do an MLS listing? So you'll see office continues to climb. We're now at 49.3%. Industrial is 18.1%, and retail is 20%. Again, with the office, the explanation with that, and again, this is not a Fountain Hills issue. As GPEC mentioned, it's a statewide issue and a national issue. And so what is the result? It's because of COVID-19, the aftermath. So again, everyone was forced to go home. Employees tended to like that, to be with their dog, maybe do a little laundry. And then too, some of them just didn't have to deal with people, right? We're not always positive. And so our employees have now sort of taken over and are telling the employers, guess what? We're not coming back. Some of the employers are forcing it or doing a hybrid approach. But this is again, it's not just a Fountain Hills issue. And so again, earlier talking about overlay districts, rezoning, we're gonna have to be creative. Again, what everyone is telling us is this is the new normal. We're not going back. And so we'll have to reimagine together some of these spaces. Again, our economic workshop. So as I mentioned, in January, we had an invitation only. We had over 50 people come to our economic summit. That was designed to make sure we got, some of our business owners there at the table. Again, we mentioned workforce issues. They could only dedicate about 2.5 hours to me and our facilitator. Again, most of our council members were there listening in. Then we opened it to the public on April 12th, and so that's that image. I was hoping for a little bit more of a bigger turnout, but again, just hearing that people are very busy. Councilmember Grabowski, I think, mentioned it in her last report, that she liked it. So if people wanted to spend 5 minutes, an hour with us, and so there was different focus areas. So asking questions about the downtown, the demographics, looking at design guidelines, for instance, workforce housing, just sort of checking the temperature before we start putting together that proposed economic development strategy. And so again, you should be looking at that perhaps September, October. Prior to that, we're gonna take it to, since it is a strategic plan, also again, just to get additional feedback from our SPAC, Strategic Planning Advisory Commission. All right, let's talk about grants. So we were able to announce earlier in the fiscal year that we were able to secure $230,000 of grant funding through AOT Visit Arizona initiative. So this was started by Governor Ducey with some of the leftover ARPA funds. And so your staff has used about over $160,000. Again, economic development is a team sport, so big shout out to Linda Ayers, Bo Larson, and John Perez. So you'll see we've been doing billboards across Arizona, specifically more in Maricopa County. We've done broadcast and digital marketing with PBS and NPR. Again, thanks to 2 of our residents and 1 a business owner, we were able to secure, again, a contract, all paid through grant funding, Evolve PR, and they were able also to give us, not just they're issuing press releases on our behalf, but giving us some live event promos. So you'll see Ryan, you just saw him, so he's there with, I believe this is channel 12. Can't see, got to put the glasses on. Both saying yes. And then, of course, our band. So again, a teaser to try to get folks out there. And then I have not mentioned this, but what we're doing, I have not been able to find any records, being here over a year, a tourism and an event impact study. So we are working on that. I, of course, have made some of my assessments being new, but it's nice to have a third party come in because they can also get some of the proprietary information. So if our golf courses who contribute to the tourism industry don't want to share it. Of course, our hotels and resorts, they're able to look at that to see what an impact tourism is on Fountain Hills. And so when that's ready, we'll be able to share that, and happy we were able to put that in the marketing plan. All right, and then additionally, between the fall and the spring, there's a section of event sponsorship where we can use a certain portion of that marketing grant to give back to our events. And so we were happy to support our 2 largest events, so the Fountain Hills Arts and Crafts fairs, and so an investment of $30,000. And through our AOT Prop 302, we're trying to get some new fresh photography for social media, our website. So that bottom one is one of our new photos, which I love, very colorful. And so we've been able to share that too with the Chamber for future marketing. And then also, of course, our Dark Sky Festival, we were able to invest in the festival, $25,000. So last year they had 1,500 participants. This year there was 2,500. So our marketing is working. They were able to capture a keynote speaker that they've been really wanting to get. And then we also asked them to add other components to make it family friendly, to get our families and kiddos there, and that's illustrated in that other photo. And then thanks to originally our Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation Prop 202 grant funding, it came in a little bit below what we were anticipating to cover costs of doing a redesign. And so we were able to make an amendment to our AOT Prop 302. And so let's see if I can show you fast or if I'm going to have problems. Ta-da! So we had not been able to redesign the website in almost 8 years. And so we've redesigned it, trying to make it playful, make the font a little bit bigger, have the themes of play, dine, stay. Again, new photographs. You'll see some call-outs. We have a featured events calendar. And some things we were changing. One of the assessments that we made was it was becoming more of a community calendar. And when people are visiting, we truly want it to be for our visitors. So we've modified that section. We also have a feed into our Instagram social media that we can control and monitor, and then a call to action that when folks are posting and sharing to use that hashtag Experience Fountain Hills. And then just on the bottom here too, quick access to our visitor's guide to watch the Fountain live stream. And then something new, we're working with Clayson Communications, one of our local businesses. A new trend you're starting to see is some blog posting, so we have that. And then as we were doing this and partnering with the chamber on the Visit Fountain Hills app, it was sort of a chicken and egg. So we've posted this, and our designer, it's taking a couple weeks, but we'll have a little button here for the app. So again, pushing folks there. All right, and then our Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Grant. So you'll see here, Linda Ayers, our very own Linda Ayers. So shout out to Linda, Ryan, Skylar, and the Community Services Department for putting on a spectacular annual Irish Fest. So we had over 6,000 attendees last year. You'll see it's grown to over 8,000. Again, through our partnership with Evolve, again, another live spot on, I believe it was channel 3, 5, and again, having our band there to do a little teaser to get more people there. So we can say the marketing, having that money is helping. We threw a lot at it, so we can't target like one specific, but. And then of course, our partnerships, I've mentioned all of them previously, but another thank you to them. And then the final slide, our tourism. So again, hotel occupancy remains below 70%. AOT is starting to see some of the industry starting to recover, but again, looking at leisure and business, really what we were wanting to target is leisure. Again, what we're hearing is some of the business, the large conventions, just because of the technology, some concerns still over safety, that might not return fully. Our social media increased by 7%. And then again, the Experience Fountain Hills website, over 24,000 unique visits. And then you'll see the top 5 cities. And then want to just shout out to my partner in crime, Mr. John Perez, who's helped with this rollout and was a big, heavy lift. And so if you haven't met him, John's in the back, our economic development specialist. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation at the Dark Sky Festival. Really good stuff. That was really one of my favorites of the year. As we've talked about tonight, the funding for the International Dark Sky Discovery Center was recently pushed through, and it looks like they'll be breaking ground on that, I'm thinking, pretty shortly. This is kind of a softball question for you, but what do you expect the economic impact to be when that opens up?
So Madam Mayor, Councilmember Calavianakis, it may be a little bit longer before it launches, and so I'll have to get back to you with a number. I don't want to give a wrong estimate. And then actually just yesterday, I was talking with the mayor and manager Goodwin, and we're looking at in the fall actually having a workshop with our dark sky folks, because again, being new and being humble and asking different questions, there is a true difference with our Dark Sky Association and then the new Dark Sky Discovery. And so starting to talk to see what the town can do to help further let folks know that we are an international dark sky community. And so I appreciate the question, but I'll get back to you.
Is the EarthCam featured on there anywhere?
Yes.
Okay.
It was that bottom, like the second button.
Awesome.
I just didn't click on it.
Thank you. Just appreciate this so much, and keep up the great work with John and everybody else and Linda, and we appreciate that. We know how great, we know we're a town like no other, so as opposed to people not ever hearing about Fountain Hills, we'll gotta work on that too.
Well, the team is changing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is going to be kind of a status report on our existing capital improvement projects, where they are right now, and how they've gone. And I think that's going to be Justin. Or no, are you starting first, Kevin?
I'll start.
Thank you.
All righty, I guess we're ready now. So Mayor and Council, this is a capital projects overview for where we're at so far this year, as well as what we have left to do moving forward. So you're going to see where funding has been spent and what's happening moving forward. So you're going to see the different highlights on the expenditures. The green is going to show that there's a projected savings for the project, but it's still in process. The blue highlights will show that there's still expenditures left this year, and so we're not sure exactly what we're going to have left on those. And then the yellow are the projects that are completed and that were completed under budget as well. This first slide's the Golden Eagle Sports Field lighting project, and it's a project that we've been aiming to do for many years. So it is just getting ready to start here in the next 3 weeks. They will be starting. It's a 2 fiscal year project, so they'll be starting in June and finishing in July, and will be transferred over to Musco's LED sports field lighting, which, as you can see on the picture to the left, how dark it is around the field and how bright it is on the field, which is one of the coolest things about the Musco system. And that one is set at $700,000 for this year, and we are expecting to expend that. The next slide is our final year of the Four Peaks Park Improvement Project. We're just getting underway with the renovations over there. In 2 weeks, we'll be starting on the playground LED lighting with Musco as well. For the 2 to 5-year-old and the 5 to 12-year-old playground will both have lights, where right now there's limited lights that were left over from the original basketball court that was there, and they're not designed at all to light up a playground. So that will make a huge improvement. And then kind of the last of our big improvements over there is the landscaping, and the last thing you want to touch, and that's adding plants and adding granite and new irrigation around some of the new ramadas that we put in last fall. And we still have 57,000 left on that, and we will be expending some of that depending on how many projects we're able to finish up this year. The next one's Desert Vista improvements, and we have ramadas on the way. The concrete that you're seeing there is the pad for where the ramada is going to go. It's right next to the playground. So for the first time, we'll actually have a ramada at Desert Vista Park, specifically for the playground. On the right bottom there, that's actually this morning, and that's our town staff doing sod installation in the dog park in a couple different areas where we removed some granite that was getting kicked out into the grass and always has. And so we eliminated the granite and are putting in new turf in there. We've also been working on the grading project in the lower end of the dog park, and that should be finished in the next week to week and a half. This project we have about $49,000 left on, and we will be expending some of that funding by the end of the year. The next project is the the Fountain Park Shade Pole Straightening Project for the shade structures that were over the playground. That project went really well. Luckily, we didn't have to pull out the poles and redo the footing, which was a concern from the vendor. We were able to get the poles straightened, even if in this picture it doesn't look straight, they are. But that went very well, and we painted the poles as well to give them a fresh coat of paint, and they came out really nice. That project came in $9,000 under budget, so that'll be going back to the general fund or the CIP fund. The next is the Fountain Park Playground lighting. This project, we were able to work with multiple vendors to find a way where we were able to actually use the shade poles as light poles. We had to get some engineer drawings done, but it was a significant savings as we went from needing 12 poles to light the playground to only needing 2 new poles. So there's a significant savings that we're projecting because we haven't done it yet. We're in the middle of starting that probably in the next 2 weeks as well. And we're projecting right now to be about $100,000 under budget. So that'll be good too. The next project was the skate park renovation expansion project. This project's been getting a lot of traction from our local skaters and bikers and phone calls on a daily basis, as well as some sneaking in and some sneaking out. So, but they're really enjoying it and they're definitely excited about it. We have a big grand opening planned for the 24th of June. So we're gonna do an evening opening because it'll be warmer. And we're getting a lot of sponsorships and a lot of people that want to be involved in it because they've seen what's there. We were able to come in just a little under budget on this one, but that was kind of the plan, is we knew where we were going to be at and we were able to stay within those guidelines. They still have a little bit more work to do over there, including adding the lights to the surrounding area and the landscaping, which we're working on now, and then we'll be done with this project. The Golden Eagle shade structures. This is a project that has worked on so many different levels, and we were able to come in $25,000 under budget. The walkers over there absolutely love them. They're hanging out under the shade and sitting on the bleachers during their walks, and they've been very thankful about it all day long. We hear tons of positive comments on them, as well as when we've had our tournaments and Little League and everything else out there. Just having a spot for the parents to sit in the shade makes a huge difference for how that facility is perceived. Rachel may know a little bit about facilities without shade. The next is our park sidewalk improvement. Right now we have about 10,000 left on that, and we're in the process of doing several projects right now that may require a little bit of that, but there might be a little bit left on this one at the end of the year. We've been able to do the entire sidewalk from Panorama down to the amphitheater, the sidewalk up by Plaza Fountain side where the trees have been lifting. They lifted a couple of our panels as well, so we took care of those. Golden Eagle, we had to reroute a couple of sidewalks along with the shade structures and improve access points, as well as redo some sections of our handicap ramp. So this funding has gone very far in making a lot of changes in our park, so it's been a good one. The next one is not a CIP project, but I know that it was a big topic, so I wanted to bring it up. This is the storage unit for the community center, and through working out and working on some Tetris type stacking and maneuvering, we were able to repurpose two of our old, and buy only one new storage container, getting some shelving and hooks and things to make the storage areas as useful as possible. And we were able to come in $14,000 under budget on that. So that was a good testament to staff making things work as efficiently as possible. And for the next slide, I'm going to ask Mike Chiccarone to come up and talk to, since he's the one that's been in charge. Enjoy.
So this also isn't a CIP project, but it was a budget supplement in the amount of $80,000. And it's basically to complete the community center classrooms, complete them with AV upgrades. So displays could be anything from wall-mounted TVs to projectors and screens. Basically moving from those carts, the TV carts, to wall-mounted TVs, which look much nicer. It was a $80,000 project that was based on proposals that we had received. Staff was asked if we could cut that cost anyway, and basically we're going to do the install in-house. So we purchased the equipment, and then the next couple of weeks we're going to do the install. So with that, we're going to save about $42,000.
Madam Mayor, council members, a lot of big numbers. I think it's important to note that on behalf of the mayor and council, the town manager, Kevin, and I are the stewards of these big numbers that you see. And we do what we do along with a lot of people that are in this audience, but primarily in this building and others that belong to the town, to ensure that the money that is allotted and awarded for these projects is spent to the best of our ability. And I'd like to take a minute to point out that the contracts that we bring to you, and oftentimes you'll hear us mention cooperative use, or that other municipal governments, state, county, went out to bid for these types of services. Some of the stuff that you just saw that Kevin presented is a benefit of that, where our estimates oftentimes are a little bit challenging, and clearly he has done his due diligence and responsibility and demonstrated that we can save money whenever possible, and we do. With that, we're going to get into a few more here with some big numbers in them. This first project is a multi-year that's been going on for several years. Last year, this funding was used to address some drainage issues fronting the community center. This year, it has two smaller projects that we are addressing. The last project that will use up the remainder of the funding that's encumbered here, which is the $45,000, is to make some corrections at the intersection of Kings Tree and Saguaro, if possible, before the end of the fiscal year. You'll note that there's an additional $4,000 in the fund balance for this. The money, when I reference fund balance and/or Kevin references saving, that money stays in the capital fund. It doesn't go anywhere else at the end of the year. This one right here is a multi-year, long-range program for major improvements. A little bit of clarification on this. Last year, we asked for $1.5 million on this, anticipating that we would be going to bid. As a result of some requirements for the Arizona Department of Water Resources and the Maricopa County Flood Control District to review our plans for the improvements, which are at 100%, that review process could be anywhere up to 18 months. So we have taken, under the direction of the town manager, $1 million out of this and moved it into the street fund. Grady Miller had discussed that with you prior to his retirement. The other $400,000 that you'll show, that is shown as being removed from this, was moved to other capital projects primarily, and here it goes, where I missed my estimate and the bids came in higher than we had imagined. But as you will see here, at the end of this, we are at about $46,000 for this year, and the outstanding balance is just under $54,000 that will remain in the capital budget. This one right here, the project is technically completed. However, the final invoicing has not been paid and the retention not paid. The intent is to bring it in on or under budget. There's some negotiations between myself and the contractor right now on some relatively expensive pump parts that we're working through. This one right here is the town-wide drainage improvement. As a little back history on this, we started focusing on the pre-incorporation drainage structures to avoid another catastrophic failure similar to the one that we had on Panorama just a few short years ago. This one right here is not started. This was a placeholder with a multi-year horizon. The intent for this placeholder was that as the Flood Control District worked to finish the drainage master planning for the entire Fountain Hills area, that we would already have funding available to possibly address some of those projects as they came out of the master plan. Unfortunately, due to staffing shortages and other challenges that the Flood Control District was facing, the project was put on hold for approximately 1 year. Staff was encouraged to reach out to the Flood Control District by the town manager and engage them and their selected vendor and determine if there was some way we could provide support, or if they could provide guidance to allow us to move forward with this drainage study, because it's very important. And as a result of those activities, the town engineer and myself, under the direction of the town manager, met with the flood control district, and they decided to take a new look at their project processes and have asked the town of Fountain Hills if we would be willing to work with them on these studies moving forward for not only the town of Fountain Hills, but other locations within Maricopa County, and design a boilerplate that streamlined, that most importantly allows for more seating at the table for the stakeholder. That's you folks on behalf of the residents, the town manager, myself, and the town engineers, in this case, both of them, working through that process. Historically, we were not completely shut out of that, but we didn't have as much control over the process. We are delighted that this process is going to move forward. We have a seat at the table, and it's still being paid for by the flood control district. There is a long-term benefit to this manual whenever we receive it. This project right here was approved later, after the original budget. This was one with a considerable amount of discussion related to flooding and damage to homes along Grande. They literally got started this week. We anticipate that it will be within the budget, slightly under, and will be completed by June 30th. This one and the next project was identified as a high priority by the mayor and council at the time it was approved, to minimize the flooding to properties. This is the second one, which is on Deuce Court. This one is not quite ready to go, but the contractors should be starting on this within the next couple of weeks. This is another project that will be finished by June 30th and will be at or below the projected budget. This is another multi-year project right here. We initially put $275,000 in the budget as a placeholder. We currently have about $117,000 of that encumbered as we look at design. And the next phase, and we had met with the mayor and the town manager related to this, is taking care of some issues on the front of the building behind the enclosure wall there. We anticipate that we're going to be able to at least address the majority of that with the encumbered money. So our projected savings by the end of this fiscal year is approximately $160,000. This is an ongoing multi-year project where we install cameras at the town's parks and buildings. This year, due to supply line issues, we've spent $32,000 and there's $42,000 remaining. If we can secure additional cameras and have them in our position but not installed, we will spend some of that $42,000 undetermined as of tonight. This one right here is the Shea Widening Project, and this primarily focuses on the south side between Palisades and Fountain Hills Boulevard. This is a grant project where 93% of the total cost is paid, and the majority of the funding that you'll see up here is actually reimbursable. So 93% of this will be reimbursed. So again, the placeholder was just under $238,000. We've spent $74,000. We anticipate about $163,000 by the close of this fiscal year in savings. A real popular one here. This one right here is currently at 95% for design. The design will be completed and we will begin the manufacturing for this by the end of this year and then complete the manufacturing. As of tonight's meeting, we still have about $203,000 in that budget. There will be a small portion of that spent for manufacturing some of the signs that will be installed next year. Successful multi-year project here. Of the $300,000, we've spent $297,000 of it on construction and design. There's an unspent fund balance of $2,000 on this one. That will remain. This project right here was the intersection of Saguaro and La Montana. After the intersection analysis is completed, under direction from the town manager and the Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Committee, this project was canceled. No further action at this time. That $150,000 remains in the budget. This is the Palisades and La Montana intersection. So this is another analysis. A little bit of delay on this. We currently have a contract in review to begin that analysis, but this will be most likely a 1 or 2 year process. We're likely to get that underway in the beginning of June and have at least the 30% roll plot by the time we close out that year, and bring that roll plot and some of the analysis back to the mayor and council when they return in late summer. Here are those big numbers. As you can see, the community services capital projects budget was $2.5 million. Their expected savings of that is just under $200,000. The public works is $3 million, just about 3.5. And we anticipate that we'll have just under $1 million when we complete all of the work this year. With that said, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Just real quick, I wanted to thank you guys for putting the slide presentation together in such a manner that we actually see how much you didn't spend of what we gave you to spend. That's one of the things that I feel like has been missing, is we give you $50,000 or $250,000, and I know you guys have been really great about it and maybe mention in passing that we saved this much money, but it's great to see it in writing. It's great for our visitors and the thousands of TV viewers at home so that we can all see how hard you are working to save us money. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Justin and Kevin, great job on this. I think this is long overdue. It really gives us an idea of where the money's being saved, where it's being spent, and what we can do with the remainder of it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
yes.
In regards to pointing out on the slides, that goes to the town manager for making that recommendation. When I submitted my PowerPoint to her for review, it was not there, and she explained that it needed to be there for this very reason.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Justin, Mike, and Kevin. I just wanted to concur with my colleagues to update and inform us of what you've been doing. We can see pictures of it. We can see the savings that the staff is providing with us. It was illuminating. I know this took a lot of work to put this presentation together, but I just want the staff to know it was a time well spent, because I think all of us here are very glad to see this kind of a look back and see what you guys have done. So I really appreciate that. And as far as the flood mitigation, I did meet with a constituent this weekend, and when I reported his drainage situation to you, I really appreciate the fact that you immediately looked it up on the map and you were so proactive to try to address that. Well, you know, what's going to happen in the future, I don't expect you to update us tonight, but I just appreciate the staff, their commitment to getting things done and to not letting moss grow over these projects, but moving forward in an expedited fashion. And so for that, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the nice compliments from all.
Well, no, no, I want to thank you too. It's very good to see this. I know any of these kind of things are always so labor intensive, but then it really gives you an accounting for what you've been doing, and we really appreciate that so much. Mike, wherever you are, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to thank the staff for putting the work in as well. We did want to make sure, as a sort of a capstone on this discussion, there have been a lot of questions about the CIP and what happens when there's overages or when there's savings and where does that go? And what I'd like to point out is staff takes it very personal. They treat it like it's their own money. You know, they want to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. It gets the job done and then some. They take a lot of pride in their projects. They take a lot of pride in completing them on time, under budget. They make it personal, and that's why we see such stellar results. So I wanted to thank everybody for what they do, and hopefully that shares a little bit. They're not great about tooting their own horns. Sometimes it's all in a day's work, and that's just what we do. But this was a good opportunity to share that, and we'll continue to do these types of updates moving forward.
I can't agree more, and $1.2 million is nothing to just kick down the road. I mean, that's a lot of money, and it's good that we have that information. So again, thank you.
Very good. Our next item is call to the public. Do we have speaker cards, Linda?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
First is Dina Galassini.
Good evening, I'm Dina Galassini, 20-year resident. I wasn't going to come out tonight, but I decided to address everybody regarding the 5G moratorium last May 2nd meeting. I wanted to address a council member who was, I feel, inadequate regarding their research regarding microwave radiation. I believe the professor that was cherry-picked by this council member is a professor of the University of Pennsylvania, in which the Gates Foundation has selected to monitor each classroom, videotape it, score the professors or the lesson, and then guide them on how to instruct better courses. The Gates Foundation selects universities that support their initiatives. It's a sad day. Think of you, each of getting scored by your job, then guided in a way that puts residents in harm's way. This professor knows darn well about microwave radiation. He's written books that go back with the history of microwave radiation all the way to the highest technology. He pathetically criticizes one of the most credible reports that was authored by hundreds of honest scientists and professionals. He criticized the bioinitiative report. One professor puts down hundreds of credible scientists. It's pathetic. If you would have done your research a little further, I would have been more impressed. But it's very sad that this microwave radiation was downplayed as our public safety and is at risk. I'll tell you, Council Brenda Kay, Friedel, and Toth, stand strong with your beliefs. We need protection. If you hired the attorney to protect the town government, if you retain him, you can certainly retain an attorney to protect town residents from this microwave radiation poisoning. When you said that this professor said that these microwaves are not as strong, you know, they're just as strong as any other antenna, but when you go and you put them a block from each other, just think of that and see how you feel after those are installed. Thank you.
Next, we have Richard Rutkowski. Sorry.
Rich Rutkowski. I've been a resident of Fountain Hills since 2001.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My comments tonight relate to the 5G small cell towers. Several residents have expressed concerns about the health consequences of having these towers installed close to their homes. And part of that discussion at the last meeting suggested that 5G exposure has not been proven to cause adverse effects on health. So I want to focus specifically on that aspect of this issue. As most of you know, I'm a physician since 1983. I know I don't look that old, thanks. One of my positions is an assistant professor of family, community, and preventive medicine at a local medical school, and I emphasize the preventive, that is, preventing illness and preserving health. The current practice of medicine ideally follows scientific evidence, and for many conditions we have the evidence. We know what works and what doesn't, but we don't know everything. And most importantly, I have personally experienced multiple examples during my career of things which were considered safe or safe and effective until they were later proven not safe and maybe even not effective. A few examples of things that were FDA approved, that is safe and effective, agents which were subsequently pulled from the market because of problems discovered after approval and use. There's a list of them. Resolin, which is a drug for diabetes causing liver failure. Zomax, an anti-inflammatory drug causing life-threatening allergic reactions. The original measles vaccine, which caused an increased risk of atypical measles. Hismanol, an antihistamine causing serious heart arrhythmias. Vioxx, another anti-inflammatory drug causing strokes and heart attacks. RotaShield, the first rotavirus vaccine for infants causing intussusception, which is a serious intestinal blockage. Meridia, a weight loss agent causing increased cardiovascular and stroke risk. Fen-Phen, another weight loss agent causing heart valve problems. Omniflox, an antibiotic causing kidney failure, hemolytic anemia, and respiratory distress. And the safe and effective COVID shots. Currently expanding scientific data casts serious doubt about the safe and effective claim. And there are more. Overall, several hundred drugs and vaccines and other agents have been pulled from the market because of serious adverse health effects found after approval and use. The point is that often what we think we know turns out to be wrong. So can we rely on the safety of close exposure to 5G radiation? Isn't it wise to take reasonable precautions? I think that the moratorium passed at the last meeting, despite the legal questions about it, was a good first step. I encourage a carefully worded ordinance to be a wise and rational next step in the process. Thank you.
Next, we have Matthew Corrigan.
Madam Mayor, council members, Matthew Corrigan, homeowner, Fountain Hills. I would like to address two topics this evening, 5G in Fountain Hills and zoning in Fountain Hills. In regard to 5G ordinances, I am one of the hundreds of 5G petition signers and would hope that the mayor, council, and staff have also read the petition. I encourage the council to retain Andrew Campanelli and void the existing contract with Jonathan Kramer. In regard to zoning, all communities under state law require an updating of the general plan every 10 years, and the former city council approved it in 2020 as a general plan. Voters must ratify the plan. I am concerned that the ordinances be enforced and that variances and rezoning should be the exception and never the rule. An interpretation that goes outside the strict provisions of the zoning ordinances should be a red flag to any homeowner. At the May 2nd council meeting, a last hour item known as the Mountainside Project was pulled from the agenda, apparently at the request of the builder developer, and concerned neighbors were prepared to oppose the project. Secondly, later tonight, there will be a request to amend resolution number 2014-08 by adding 14 additional lots to an already 2014 approved project known as Eagles Nest Parcel 2. The realtor developer had 26 lots approved, but now wants 40. So 60% more lots in the same parcel of land. The already developed parcel adjacent to this is Parcel 1, which has 21 lots. I wonder how many of those homeowners in Parcel 1 know that the same size parcel adjacent to them will have 40 lots. How many of these homeowners are snowbirds and are now back at their home in a summer home? Of those additional added lots, the developer has added 4 flag lots among the new additions. This seems inconsistent with a neighboring parcel 1 of roughly the same size. Although I don't live in either of these areas, I'm concerned about this seeming trend in zoning. Combine this with recent attempts to allow substance rehab counseling facilities in a commercial area zoned for dental and medical offices. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. If I was a homeowner living in either Mountainside area or Eagles Nest adjacent to Parcel 1 area, or adjacent to Parcel 3, or adjacent to Parcel 11, I would be very concerned. Many homeowners have their major investment in these homes, and I don't want to see that investment drop in value and depreciate.
Next, we have Barry Wolborski.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to speak on something completely different. So I would notice at the last council meeting that there was $34,000 left in the budget to complete the study for the Eagle Ridge Drive traffic signal. Already $90,000 has been spent on that, on a project that we're not going to do. And this extra $34,000 is to complete a project that we're not going to do. I understand that the company has told us that this study would last for several years and wouldn't become outdated. I would like to know if the Federal Reserve Board can't predict what inflation is going to do next month. How does this company know what inflation's going to do in 3 to 5 years? I suggest that this study will be valueless by the time you want to use it. But there's another concern that I have, and I think it's more important. If you think about that intersection, and if you're heading south on Palisades, there's a big curve before that intersection, which means that people couldn't see the stoplight in advance. So a signal would have to be put out a couple hundred feet before to let people know that there was a stoplight and it was red, so they could stop for it. Once that signal is put up, people will know when it's not red. And we all know that people kind of move along that area pretty quickly, and you can't see the intersection when you're coming from the north to the south. If somebody's making a right turn and somebody's coming down that street at 45 to 50 miles an hour, the accident is going to be horrendous. There's going to be serious injuries. There's going to be fatalities. By putting up a stoplight, you're not making it safer, because the stop sign now, everyone knows they have to stop there. So when cars come out to make turns, you're already stopped. You're not going 50 miles an hour. I think you really need to rethink this.
Next, we have Larry Myers.
Mayor, council, resident, 41 years. First, I want to thank you for passing the moratorium last meeting. I am absolutely certain, after listening to all of you, you know very little about the subject of 5G small cell and data transmission. I can tell that because I know some people think that you get better cell service from it, and it has nothing to do with your telephone. So, with that in mind, I know you have a workshop. I would encourage you to take the residents who have done considerable amount of research, that know way more than anybody sitting on the dais. I would study their research. I would fact check their research. And I would listen to more than one party, specifically a guy that I did a lot of research on, and that was the attorney we hired, who is, in my estimation, what I would call a tower pimp. He writes licenses. He creates revenue for town. I think that's how this got started, because the town needs revenue. Sell licenses, get revenue. I'm going to stay away from the medical portion of this. We've already heard enough about that. And I will tell you that I've been around microwave radiation my entire life in the television industry, so maybe that's what's wrong with me. But I will tell you the one thing that is obvious and cannot be disputed is that there are no above-ground utilities in Fountain Hills. The master planner saw to that way back in 1968. So putting up a bunch of towers, poles around town is absolutely the opposite of what was intended for this community. We talk about our views, we talk about the beauty, we talk about all this stuff, and then we're contemplating this? I don't think so. I think you can just contemplate sticking fiber underground where the electrical is, where the cable is, and where all the other utilities are, as they were intended, and then you won't have to worry about the microwave radiation that some folks are worried about. You'll have the unintended consequences of saving them while protecting the beauty of Fountain Hills as it was intended. Thanks a lot.
Next, we have Lori Troller.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Rachel, Aaron. Lori Troller, 27-year resident. Not prepared for this one, but here we go. I need to clarify. 5G services are broken down into two types of services. That's cellular and ultra-wide products. Cellular being everything on your phone. Cellular is what's in town. It's on the macro towers. The ultra-wide products would be what we're talking about bringing in on, we don't have it yet, and it would be the small cell stuff. So when Aaron says, we have the federal and the state regulations, everything, that pertains to the cellular side. None of us here are even talking about that. That's not the products we're talking about. We're talking about the ultra-wide stuff. Now, the ultra-wide stuff isn't regulated by federal or state. We get to do that. It's just like garbage services. We can say, hey, we want one service, we want them on what day. We can regulate that all we want. So there was a recent court case, that actually calls that distinction out. And we can rely on that to define those two products. And the moratorium even says, we're not talking about the phone piece, totally excludes that. Moratorium doesn't even touch that. We're talking about the data stuff. We don't have in town yet. We want to write a moratorium on. So what does this mean to us? It's just like what Larry said. Rolling hills, open space, we have property, our property values are based on our views and stuff like that. We get to protect that. Telecom can't come in and say, hey, we just want to put a tower there. Can't do that. We can say, put it underground. That's all we're asking for. We're not trying to stop this. We're not, Aaron, what's the word? It's prohibit. We're not prohibiting it. We just want to bring it in underground. That's it. Now, one other thing, if I have a moment. I don't speak to health. Try and stay away from that. Everybody's going to be in the garage talking about that for the rest of their life. There's still people smoking. No, if any of you, I'm sorry. But the FCC, recently there was a case where the FCC was told, how'd you come up with your guidelines? And so what did they test? They test little rats for a little while? No, they tested a 220-pound man, not a child, not a woman, not a pregnant woman, not an elderly, a 220-pound man. How do you guys measure up to 220 pounds? Guess what? Man wasn't a man. It was plastic. All these guidelines we have when we say, oh, that antenna, that router right there is okay, it was tested on plastic before it melted. So when you bring up anything about safety, you can have all the studies, all the schools, anything you want. What it comes down to is what does the FCC say? And the FCC says, didn't melt plastic. So before you want to stick these things in people's yards and put a license on that and be responsible for it. That's what we're testing, plastic. Thanks.
Next, we have Rick Watts.
This is going to sound like a broken record. Rick Watts, 30-plus years, resident, Fountain Hills. Mayor, council, staff. So over the last several weeks, I've had the opportunity to listen to numerous town residents expressing their concerns, as you have, regarding 5G towers, supplemental small cell towers, and concerns about potential ramifications to health, property values, et cetera. My own curiosity drove me to spend an inordinate amount of hours researching through the FCC, FDA, CDC, EPA, every acronym for something, other government agency that I could think of, as well as the telecom associations, independent industry experts, popular mechanics, and a plethora of other organizations. So what I found was that there are both pros and cons to the side of this debate. So this is slightly different. Understanding the clarification regarding the various types of towers being proposed for installation, understanding various methods of transmission, understanding the impact on signal strength, type, distance, penetration, it's all the technicalities that go along with this issue, research on health and property values. So each issue has supporters and opponents, and I admit it's extremely technical in nature, very difficult to understand. And I think I've got a relatively strong background in electronics, electrical engineers, that type of stuff. So as I also researched the outside attorney recommended by the town attorney in conjunction with the town council, and find that the consultant's background appears to be geared more towards helping the town develop regulations that are tepid to produce accommodative ordinances that would allow for the installation of said towers in the right-of-ways. The firm, and more specifically Jonathan Kramer, may be very well versed from the technical side, and I give him a lot of credit for the work that he has done with other municipalities, other towns. But the problem that I see is the regulations were not necessarily to protect the voiced interests of the residents. And I think that's the slight differentiation that I'm talking about here, is that the focus should be listening to the town residents. So when I hear all of the town residents express their deep desire and more objective understanding in order to properly protect and regulate, I don't know that we're giving it enough credit at this point. What I would suggest and urge the council to direct the town attorney to terminate the agreement with Telcom law firm and engage a consultant expert who is more closely aligned with the expressed desires of the residents and has prior demonstrable and successful experience producing an ordinance that first and foremost listens to the residents' petitions and not a consultant that may have leanings towards satisfying the telecom industry. It's pretty straightforward. If there's strength in the Telcom law firm, they're experts in it. But which way do they lean? Are they leaning towards us? Are they leaning toward government? Are they leaning towards the telecom industry? And I think that's the wild card. So I would ask you to strongly consider finding somebody that more closely aligns with town residents. Thank you.
We have no more public comment cards.
Thank you. Thank you all. We appreciate your comments, and we had a talk about it earlier, so more to come. Our next item is our consent agenda, and if you don't want anything removed, could I get a motion, please?
Move to approve our consent agenda.
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fidel.
Aye.
Councilmember Calavianakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McMahon.
Aye.
Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you. I'm going to open a public hearing on this next item. John is here to talk about a site plan review changes in our ordinance. And so we'll hear from John, and then we'll take any speaker cards, and then we'll discuss. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good to see you this evening. Hopefully this won't take too long. We've had a little bit of an introduction of this before. The Chapter 2 of our zoning ordinance deals with the different processes involved in the applications we receive, rezonings, special use permits, temporary use permits, and so forth. One of those sections deals with site plan review, and that's the one we have here for your consideration this evening. been going through the entire chapter, section by section, and looking at those sections for updates to make them more consistent with each other, to take care of some issues that evolved over time, and bring them to you for your review. The council did look at and approve modification to Section 202 for special use permits back in September. So with this Section 204, which again deals with our site plan review process, you can see the outline of the existing ordinance on the left and the proposed ordinance on the right, very similar, slightly reorganized again to develop some consistency with the other sections of this chapter. Again, going through briefly some of the changes that are in here. A lot of it is just reorganization, but there are some things that are added, mostly for clarification. In Section A with the applicability and purpose, amended the purpose section to include a reference to Chapter 19 of the zoning code. This is a design guidelines section. When you read that section, it tells you that under certain requirements you have to process the site plan, but in the site plan it doesn't tell you to look at the Chapter 19. So this makes that connection between the two so people can understand where they're at, that connection. Clarifying the requirement for site plan review prior to submitting for a plan review, and highlighting the benefit of the review for compliance with the zoning. And then also amended to include a requirement with regard to redevelopment expansion of existing site, which ties with one of the main reasons for updating this section, because currently our code doesn't give us any direction on how to handle site plan amendments once we've approved one. So that will be an addition we'll talk about in a moment. The application, Section B, a few minor changes in there, one of which is to bring it up to date with current practice. The code still talks about paper submissions and how many paper copies we need to have. We don't do paper copies anymore, so this clarifies that. And then several places in this section, we again added references to other parts of the code, so a person looking to provide the information knows where to look in the ordinance to find exactly what we're after. Review and approval. The section was modified a little bit to fit the same format that we put into the special use permit format, and we'll use also in the other sections to keep consistency in the review and approval process. This one is a little bit different because it is administratively approved, so it doesn't have some of the pieces about coming to council and so forth. Sections D and E in the current ordinance deal with appeal and expiration. Those were unchanged. Section F is a new section dealing with amended site plans and provides some definition of what would be a minor and a major amendment. The main difference that happens there, if it's a minor amendment, less to look at. We're proposing that they only pay half the fee instead of the full fee. If it's a major amendment, it's really like looking at a new site plan, so it's a full fee for that. And then Section G is the final section of the revised ordinance. This deals with how we treat site plans in conjunction with special use permits and temporary use permits. The current ordinance has been a little bit confusing. When you look at the special use permit piece and the site plan piece, they were kind of circular in which one is supposed to come first. So I've been trying to clarify that with this update, and specifically allowing for conceptual or preliminary site plans to be processed with the special use permit or the temporary use permit, and allowing them to wait for the full site plan review once they've gotten that approval and they know with some assurance they can move forward, avoiding the cost of a full site plan development. However, if they want to submit the full site plan up front, they can. It also clarifies that if both are involved, they have to do the special use permit first, or as part of the site plan. We're not going to do the site plan first and then the SUP, because that has created problems in the past. And so with that, staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval.
Thank you, John. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Thank you. Questions for John from council? Anybody? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Yeah, just a couple things I'd like to address tonight. I like the administrative changes that you made. I think it's more friendly, it's more easy to read, and it tightened it up quite a bit. It seems to me that the minor amendments, instead of paying 1/2 the fee, it seems like that's a little high. I would recommend maybe 1/4 of the fee. I think that would be fair to our business owners. I mean, if it's just changing something so slightly, it seems kind of a hard hammer. So that's what I'd recommend. And then you go into substantive changes on section 15 and 17, where it calls for now this is a set for the site plan, not for the licensing and what comes later. Do you want to include a photometric plan showing the foot candles and lighting in all parking areas? Photometric plans don't grow on trees. They're kind of expensive, and it seems to me this is not a business-friendly proposition. And also, with the parking lot landscaping requirements, I think that anybody that wants to build is going to build the landscaping in later, and also with the photometric plan, we'll add that later. I think both of these just seem a little business unfriendly to me for this early stage of development. So, you know, what I would recommend is just to amend this to have the minor amendments to a quarter fee, and then to basically just, at this point, just eliminate the substantive changes from 15 and 17, and just basically strike out the new red line provisions that you added.
I have a question. On that landscaping one, are you including that because of what happened with the hospital in the process of the plans and the questions with the landscaping afterward? Is that one of the reasonings that you have behind that?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, not specifically, just experience with looking at these. So I don't necessarily have a concern with what Councilmember Kalvianakis has suggested with removing those particular pieces, but when we talk about the parking lot landscape requirements of Chapter 7, it's not just the plant material, it's the location of the areas that are required and some of the calculations that are involved with having sufficient amount of area that if they wait for the building permit to do that, then they may find that they've missed something and have to go back and correct. So again, I could go either way on that particular one. And similarly with the suggestion with the photometrics, there's a specific ordinance requirement of meeting 5-foot candles. The sooner they look at it, the sooner they'll know they have it addressed. But if we want to wait for the building permit to do that, that's not going to be a big issue. They're still going to have to meet the requirement.
So you want to keep the landscaping one and change it to 5-foot candle? Which one's that? I'm sorry.
That was Romanette 17.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, could we just say, instead of the photometric plan, just in compliance with dark sky code?
Sure. But the foot candles is actually in Chapter 7 of the zoning ordinance, not the Chapter 8, but they're two separate provisions. And Council, again, Mayor, Councilmember Kalvianakis will point out too that Romanette 6 in that list, what we're looking for in terms of, at this point, landscaping is a graphic representation of a landscape treatment. It's not a detailed landscape plan that would come later with the building permit.
So is that code for it's kind of cheap?
It's a start. It's not necessarily the full blown plan, but just giving us an idea of what they're planning to do.
I have a question about the, landscaping and, well, first of all, this was approved by Planning and Zoning as is. Was any of this discussed at that time?
Mayor, no, they didn't have specific issues with these.
So they approved this unanimously as is?
Yes.
We talk about, what was mentioned earlier was mountainside potential rezone, and a big part of that, whether it passes or how it's reviewed, has to do with the landscaping. So I don't think we should remove that item or really change it. And again, since the lighting is referenced elsewhere, I probably wouldn't want to change that, and I don't really want to change the fee that much. I don't really know what that fee is, but it feels like Planning and Zoning heard it twice, made suggestions, and then approved this unanimously. When you have a section that's referenced, is it lit up? Can they link to it? Like if they're looking in, I think a couple of slides before you said it was referencing back. Are they able to click on those?
So, Mayor, yes, we've had that in the past. I might punt to our town clerk just a little bit because she works with the codifier and how easy it is for them to set up those hot links in the code. But I believe it's possible we do have some in the current code.
Yeah, it's pretty helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Mayor, if you don't mind going back on the fee for the the minor site plan amendments. P&Z did discuss that some and made some adjustments to what staff had initially proposed along the lines of what Councilmember Calvianakis has talked about. Lowered the bar a little bit, raised the bar, which way would it be? Made more things minor amendments than what we had initially proposed because they had a similar concern. And staff kind of picked a percentage out of the air. We'll certainly leave it open to the council if you'd like to charge less for those. Some of them are pretty minor and don't take a lot of staff time. Others, again, a little bit more, but I don't see that as a big hit on the revenue either way on the town. It could be beneficial to an applicant if it were a little bit less.
Thanks.
Just to go kind of circle back to what Councilman Calvianakis was saying, I would absolutely support lowering that to a quarter for minor adjustments when it's specified that it's for minor adjustments. Makes sense that it would be a minor fee. As for the other changes, I think we can, I think we could go without the, I'm going to say it wrong, I almost said photogenic, but the original word for the study, I think we can go without that for that initial phase, with it still being the requirement once they're going into their building permit. And the
landscape area.
Thank you. The landscape area, I think that can stay, considering that was including much more, but I don't know if we're ready to make that a motion, but I'll try it anyway. With that, I'd move to amend as previously stated.
I second. With those two amendments, the photometric and the fee. Yeah, I would second that.
Okay, so it wasn't the landscaping one then, right?
Right.
Okay. All right.
So wait, I just want to make sure we're clear. We're lowering the fee to a quarter is what we're discussing it, for the minor only, and getting rid of the photometric requirement for this particular area. Okay, thank you.
Question, are we going to have it say in compliance with dark sky, or is that unnecessary?
That's still in there. I didn't hear that one come out. I did not hear that provision come out of what's in here in Roman at 17. It would still say lighting plan in conformance with Chapter 8 of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Friedel.
Aye.
Councilmember Calvianakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Aye.
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McMahon. Aye. Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, our next item is a, oh, I forgot to close the hearing. Hearing's closed. I always do that. Our next item is about the Eagle's Nest parcel and parcel 2. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and the public. So what you have before you is a proposed amendment to the settlement agreement that was approved through a resolution back in 2014. And it was actually referenced by one of the members of the public earlier. So I'll go into detail about what the amendments actually entail. I do want to make one point of clarification before moving too far ahead. The staff report refers to MCO as the owner of the unsubdivided parcel here, particularly parcel 2. MCO is actually 50% owner. They're part of an LLC. The other 50% is owned by MJM Holdings. So although the staff reports mentions MCO, the resolution actually refers to the LLC. So the original settlement agreement from 2014 that mentioned earlier. And by the way, there are a number of agreements between the town and the developers and owners for much of what's known as Eagle's Nest. But the 2014 development or settlement agreement, rather, caps the number of lots at 245. So that's currently what's effective. The amendments to this agreement particularly focuses on, what's referred to as the future development down here, which is known as Parcel 2 of Eagle's Nest. It's about 58.2 acres. And here's an aerial photograph, obviously. But the original plat was approved back in 2004 for Parcel 2. That was the final plat. Originally, developers had proposed 26 lots. Although it was approved by council, the plat was never recorded by the county, so it remained unsubdivided. It actually came back for a replat back in 2010 with some slight adjustments to the property lines. That was also approved, but once again, it was not recorded. So it never became, it's still a unified parcel, unsubdivided. You'll notice that there has been a little bit of rough grading here for the cul-de-sacs that were originally proposed under the original plan for the 26 lots. Those cul-de-sacs have not been, like I said, they've been rough graded, but they have not been paved. So the amended terms of this proposed amendment before you particularly addresses changes to the lot count that was originally agreed upon. I'll get into more detail with some further slides. Addresses allowances for flag lots, some changes to the location of the emergency access easement that you'll see in the tentative development plan that will follow, some changes to the cut allowances, as well as the disturbance areas and maximum retaining wall heights. Now, this is the tentative development plan that the applicant has provided with the proposed amendments. If you take a close look at the plan, you'll see some underlying dashed gray lines of some rather elongated parcels, or lots rather. That was part of the original 26 lot plat that once again hadn't been recorded. And you'll see the gray here refers to the cul-de-sacs that I showed you earlier. What you see superimposed on that with the black dashed lines is the 40 lot development that the applicant is proposing through this development agreement. Now, I should stress at this point, approval of this proposed amendment doesn't commit or bind the town to any particular design. The purpose of the development agreement is basically the applicant or the owners requesting certain allowances that may sometimes deviate from, for example, the subdivision ordinance or even the zoning ordinance in return for something that the town might be getting in return, and I'll help answer that question at a later slide. But as part of the amendment, aside from the increase in lot count from 26 to 40, a net increase of 14 for parcel 2, the applicant is requesting cut allowances for a few parcels here, 6 parcels to be exact, particularly steep hillsides here. They're requesting cut allowances of 20 feet for those parcels. Now, typically, the town, for any particular lot, if a developer is proposing cuts and or fills of greater than 10 feet, that would require town council approval. Any cuts less than that would be approved, would be looked at administratively, and that does not require approval from the governing body. But in this case, the owner is requesting an allowance of up to 20 feet in cuts. The applicant is also requesting the addition of, or the inclusion of 4 flag lots, or in some parts of the country they're called pipe stem lots. But you can see those marked here with the red dots. Now, typically, flag lots are not something that is necessarily prohibited in the town, or prohibited by the subdivision ordinance or even the zoning ordinance. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, though, once we come across a flag lot. How do we actually measure the setback, given some of the, given the narrow entrance into the lots, because some may be as little as 20 feet or sometimes even less. But in this case, the applicant has provided, or has proposed actually, the development envelopes, and that's something that will be that is part of the proposed agreement. And should also mention that the applicant has also requested the relocation of the emergency access easement. The original emergency access easement, which was approved by instrument of a grant of easement, is shown here in yellow. That's, by my estimation, approximately anywhere between 460 to 500 linear feet that was originally approved. They're requesting, in light of this new 40-lot layout, a relocation depicted here in the blue highlight, which is approximately about 70 feet. So, in summary, this kind of stems from the previous slide I showed earlier, but I'm providing some more specific with regards to what the changes are. So with this approval of this amendment to the settlement agreement, rather, the increased lot count will go from 26 to 40, particularly for parcel 2. Now, that's obviously an increase of 14 lots, but for the overall Eagle's Nest development, that will be a net increase of 9. So it goes from 245 to 254. So let me explain. There were 5 lots in the past few years that have been combined. So and once they're combined, MCO does not allow them to be divided once again. So although for parcel 2, there's a net increase of 14, the overall development, Eagle's Nest development, there will be a net increase of 9 lots. Which would include the 4 flag lots. It would include the shortening of the emergency access easement that I discussed earlier. It would also allow the 20-foot cut allowances for the 6 lots that I mentioned earlier. There also will be inevitably an increase in the disturbance area. Now, the average disturbance for each lot in the original agreement caps it at 24,700 square feet. They're maintaining, the owners want to maintain that average disturbance, but because it's being increased to 40 lots, there will be a cumulative disturbance of about 908,000 square feet. And they're also requesting allowance for 10-foot high retaining walls. In cases of hillsides, the absolute max that one can go with regards to retaining walls is 10 feet, but the average is capped at 8 feet. So any one retaining wall, absolute max 10 feet, but it needs to average out at 8. In this case, the applicant is simply requesting an allowance of 10-foot high retaining walls, regardless of what that average might turn out to be. So going back to this slide real quick, the question might come up, what is the town getting in return? Well, what's preferable to the town is better circulation, particularly in some of these more remote areas of Fountain Hills. Originally, the applicant was proposing the cul-de-sacs that I discussed earlier. With this increase in the lot count, the applicant will be providing and dedicating to the town a circular driveway as opposed to or rather a circular road as opposed to the two cul-de-sacs that were proposed earlier. This would help emergency access immensely, and in the case of any particular traffic issues along Mountain Parkway over here, whether it be flooding or vehicular incidents, it would still provide additional means of access to these lots, in addition to the emergency access easement to the southwest of here. So with that, I will conclude my comments. There are members of from both MCO, or rather the LLC, I should say, that owns this parcel here to help shed some light on some of the details of the agreement.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
Mayor, we do not.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council then? Vice Mayor?
Okay. As far as the easement goes, there's only verbal. There isn't anything in writing, though. Are they pretty sure that everybody's in significant agreement with that and it's going to happen? And is there any consequences if it doesn't, for some reason, come to fruition?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, so approval of this development agreement doesn't necessarily, I guess, doesn't complete the process for the grant of easement. And perhaps the applicant could correct me if I misspeak here, but the grant of easement will have to come at a later date to amend the original easement that was agreed upon. So that will. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm with MCO Realty. I'm actually the manager of MJFFH7, the owner of this parcel. I would like to have Sean White actually address this because we actually found some very interesting things when we began to look into it. So Sean, can you come up here?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And address the easements?
Yeah, so Sean White for the applicant, Mayor, Town Council members. With respect to the easement, we went back in time to try to figure out whether there was actually an easement that ran across Eagle's Nest. What we've discovered going through our survey process with our surveyors is we have an easement, or there's an easement that leads up to Eagle's Nest. There isn't a grant of easement that actually extends into Eagle's Nest. So when staff was talking about the loop road and something of benefit to the town, actually granting the additional access, which you see in the blue line there, would be something else that the town would obtain through this plan here. And I think that's what Mr. Vargo is referring to with respect to that particular easement. It goes back, you may have gone through a lot of these settlement agreements. I think it goes all the way back to 2001 or 2004, and they continually have been amended over the years. And so going back in time and finding those atlas surveys were extraordinarily important for us.
Yeah. Address the fact that really there were two easements. One was abandoned.
Sure.
One came to the property line of Eagle's Nest, and the one that we show in the yellow never was recorded.
Sure. So there was an 80-foot cross-access easement that went across Adero that the prior developer had put in place, and it had gone across what is now the preserve land and into Eagle's Nest. That easement was subsequently abandoned by the previous developer when they were common owners. And so the 80-foot easement that tends to show up on some of these surveys, in fact, was abandoned some time ago. I forget the exact abandonment date, but it is 2001. So it was quite a while ago that the 80-foot cross-access easement was abandoned. And I wasn't involved in that process whatsoever, but I think that was part of the the access between Adero and Eagle's Nest prior to having emergency access through the actual front gates.
Thank you. I have another question. Please be patient. I'm trying to understand the disturbance allowance and the change. And is it going to have a negative or a positive effect on
Okay.
the disturbance
Madam
allowance?
Vice Mayor, the disturbance is 22,700. It was, probably I'd mentioned 24,000, but it's 22,700 square feet was the original development agreement. That was averaged over the 245 lots, and then it had to be allocated into each area. So parcel 2, what we're doing is we're looking at parcel 2 as 40 lots with an average of 22,700 square feet of disturbance for those 40 lots. Now, as you look at the plan, you'll see that still, and we're not asking for any rezone, so there still is an average of 1.34 acres in size to each lot that is here.
Councilman Skillicorn, did you have something to say? Whoops.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, Senior Planner Tavasoni, did I get that right?
Tavasoli, close enough.
Close enough, come on. Give me a little better now. Can we go back to the summary changes?
Sure.
And this is a unique property because it is very pretty. You know, the elevation is stunning to look at. It also creates some challenges. So the actual increase in number of lots, it's still over an acre. You mentioned 1.4. Yeah, so I'm going to suspect that I don't think any of those lots are under an acre now. So I think the density is fine with me on that. But where I am getting some issues is the cuts and the retaining walls. So I'm a little concerned about the water runoff. I see that, like we talked about, where that abandoned easement is there. There's, obviously it looks like the terrain there, water could go down that way. But I mean, I do have some concerns about erosion. And I also, because of it's such a pretty area, I don't like the idea of cutting into the mountain and making this terraced.
Okay, Councilmember Skillicorn, two things. Number one, the allowance for the 10-foot high retaining walls, that was strictly for the road. That's not for the lots. So just keep that in mind. And in terms of the 20-foot cut allowances for the 6 lots, what we actually did is we spoke to many different builders as we did this plan. We started looking at it a year ago. The recurring theme was, we do not like the cul-de-sacs, so let's try to figure out a way we can connect this. So many of the builders that we spoke to came up with this suggestion. And I actually have one of the builders here who is much better at explaining this than I am. So if you would, Brent, can you come up? Brent Halante, Custom Homes, who has, I think, 10 houses going right now in Eagle's Nest. If you can explain the 20-foot cut allowance for the 6 lots.
Madam Mayor, council members. So, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. The 6 lots that we're proposing for that 20-foot cut are on the backside, going up the mountain. So they're fairly steep. Most of my clients want single-story houses. So the proposal for this 20-foot and what we're proposing to put into the design guidelines to prevent making it ugly and keeping it within the town's vision for the housing is that these 20-foot cuts will need to be covered by the house by either the basement wall, like a basement wall, so if it's a 2-story house, that back wall is going to be covering that part of the cut. So what ends up happening is with those steep lots, if we don't have a little bit more of a cut and have a large retaining wall that's put in and built into the house, then we have to terrace multiple retaining walls up front, and we get this wedding cake terracing effect, and that's what we want to get away from. We want to keep the houses blended into the hillsides and not have this, which I've been building in Fountain Hills for almost 20 years. So I've built in almost every one of the subdivisions, and I've seen this terracing, and it's not pretty. And this is why we're proposing this on these 20 lots and to have that, or sorry, 6 lots for the 20-foot cut, to have this in the design guidelines to eliminate that and keep the scenery the way it is.
And I echo that, even though I like to preserve the mountainside. You saw the 6 is very steep. Which way are they facing? Are they? I'm looking at the geography right here. Is it facing the south, or southeast, or is it?
So, I'm just going to let this slide up for reference.
Is there a slide that shows? Oh, is it the orange?
Yeah, the 6 orange. So those go from the road up. They go up the mountain.
Upward sloping lots, and they'll face the north.
And they're facing the preserve.
Facing the north.
No,
No,
they're not facing the preserve.
they're facing the north.
Yeah.
So they're facing
They're
the
backing
Battle
up.
Mountain
Yeah.
Okay.
Ranch area, the park, Maricopa County Park.
And then those lots continue going up and then crest over back in towards Madero.
So, can I make
Yeah, I'm not excited about cutting into the mountain.
Alan, if I can allay some of your fears, I've been out to the property, and I've seen it firsthand. This is not going to be a Darrell Canyon where they blew up the mountain and ravaged that mountain. These guys are doing this tastefully. There's about 20 or 25 homes in process right now up in Eagles Nest. 22, yeah. And really what they're doing here, what I saw, there was the best use of this land, and the developers and the residents are working within the land. So I think this fits very well. I too was concerned with the cut, but when I got out there and I actually got on the property and looked at it, it makes sense to me, and I don't have an issue with it. I actually kind of like it, and I like the fact that the road has a different, they have a couple of different access points to this area for emergency vehicles and everything else too. So again, it's 6 lots out of the 40. You're talking, what, 5%? I don't think that's a stretch, and it's, again, we're not talking a Darrell Canyon here, so.
Or overlook at Fire Rock.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, or yeah, yeah.
We don't have to disparage other neighborhoods. Yes, sir? You have any more? I'm just kidding.
And I can add too that this is the request for these if it's needed. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but because these are steep lots, depending on the size of the homes, I mean, the average home I'm building in there right now is 6,000 square feet. So when you have a 1.34 acre parcel, we're $3 to $5, $7 million homes. To get on that steep of a hillside, it ends up, you have to build such a tiny home or go up the mountain, and then the home is terraced, and the age limit in the average age in Eagles Nest too, they don't want to be walking up the stairs and doing small levels on each level. They want single story, expansive, beautiful homes that blend into the environment. So that's the idea for this.
Is that, would that be a result, though, of adding these lots? Like, if you didn't add the lots, it's kind of hard to see what it was supposed to be, but would you need to do the cuts if you didn't add the lots? And I'm not, you know what I'm saying? If you,
Kind of question.
Going back to the original.
Yeah.
if you weren't, would you have that issue with the needing to do the 20-foot cuts if you weren't adding these lots?
Well, again, if you're going to connect the road, you have to have lots on each side of the road. You can't afford to do the road. So by adding these lots, what we're trying to do is make it blend into the environment much better so. Then as you drive through Eagles Nest or any of the communities in town, you'll find that the last lots to get built on, if they're even being built on, are the upward sloping lots. The 10-foot cut is a great hindrance to those upward sloping lots because it's forcing steps, it's forcing many different levels. And as Brent had said, our average age in Fountain Hills is 58, and it's getting older, and most of those people do not want any steps at all in their homes. So we're trying to accommodate that while still trying to do the best plan we can in terms of the environment and the aesthetics.
I am 58, and I haven't wanted steps in my house for easily 20 years, just for the record. That being said, I lived in the Keys, in Florida Keys, for a lot of years, and it's a lot of cul-de-sacs. And for me to see them go away and have the loop around and, you know, a couple of pipe stems, flag poles, I realize you got to do that. But I really like the fact that now we've turned it into one full road all the way around. My husband used to be a volunteer firefighter in the Keys, and the curse words that came out of his mouth every time he had to go down one of those cul-de-sacs is, I won't go there today. Also, I totally support the wedding cake terracing. I hate that. I like one wall better than the whole wedding cake thing that you talked about. Yes, cutting into the mountainside kind of stinks, but I feel like we have to be creative to get the houses that the people want in those kinds of neighborhoods. And keep in mind, we're only looking at going from a 0.50 to 0.52 lots per acre. So I don't have a problem with this particular request at all, and if nobody else wants to have a discussion, I'm all for making a move to approve this as is.
Second.
Brenda?
I was just going to make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Friedel. Aye. Councilmember Calavianakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Don't make me regret with too many mountain cuts. Yes.
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McMahon. Aye. Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is extending the contract with Maricopa County Sheriffs. Rachel, did you want to mention this?
No, I'll be happy to introduce it, and then I'm actually going to ask if David Pock will step up. He was helping draft that as well. As many of you know, we are in negotiations with MCSO to renew our law enforcement contract. Our current contract expires on June 30, so a little less than 45 days. Once that expires, we do not have a plan come July 1. So we have been working with them to negotiate a new contract. However, we do not believe we will make that deadline. So as a yes, as a stopgap, we have are proposing a month-to-month contract up to 6 months so that we have something in place until we solidify a final contract renewal. So that's what you have before you. I know our finance director, David Pock, was very involved with this. So if you have any questions here, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for David? Do we have any speaker cards on this?
Yes, Mayor, we do. It's a written comment, and it's from J.P. Ward. He just wants you to know that he is for it, and he had some comments. That's the only card we have.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councilman Skillicorn?
Madam Mayor, it's more of a statement. So I'm going to support this, but I do want to make it public. I prefer when we do actually have a renewal is that we have 19 officers plus the SRO. I think it's unwise to reduce our coverage. But that, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Calavianakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Aye.
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Friedel.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you very much. Our next item is approving the IGA with Arizona for our sidewalk gap elimination on Saguaro and Palisades. Justin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. As you'll recall, this is a grant project that originally started out at about $1 million. The engineer of record estimated it'd be about $2 million. When the final documents were turned over to the Arizona Department of Transportation, it went to a little more than $3 million. Of that, the town has received additional grant funding, not only to cover the design, but we also applied for, under direction of the town manager, for closeout funds to cover our portion of the construction. While it shows that for this $2 million sidewalk, there's approximately $221,000, we believe that amount is going to be substantially lower based on the progress of this project and the grant funding that has been made available and will become available. As a brief reminder, this is just an extension to that agreement, a brief update on the project. It is reaching 100% in the design, The Arizona Department of Transportation, the administrator for these federal funds, anticipates releasing the project out for bid in mid to late summer, and then construction will commence shortly thereafterwards, and it'll take approximately 10 to 12 months to complete that process. When it's all completed, we'll have an incredible improvement and a benefit to this community, including sidewalks on Saguaro from basically Colony to Fountain Hills Boulevard on either side, and Palisades on the north side from Fountain Hills Boulevard back to Saguaro. With that, any questions related to the IGA, I'll do my best to answer them.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have a written comment from JP Ward saying that he is for this project.
Thank you very much. Councilman?
Madam Mayor, Director, on B, did I hear you right? You said either side, so both sides of Saguaro?
Correct. The project starts at Colony. Across the street from Colony is Lamplighter. And not to add any confusions, but Lamplighter is on the south side of Saguaro at this location.
Thank you. There's some residents that I know want a sidewalk there, so motion approved.
Do I have did anybody else have any comments?
Second.
I mean, we could take a second. Okay. I have all these names on here. Great. Roll call, please.
First, I need to know who was it that seconded it? Okay, Sharon. Okay. Okay, Councilmember Skillicorn.
Yes.
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fidel.
Aye.
Councilmember Calavianakis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McMahon. Aye. Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you, Justin. Are you up for the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Madam Mayor, council member, this is one of the hot topics and a priority for this council, which is infrastructure. When we discuss infrastructure as a whole, more often than not, most people are thinking about the big water lines, sewer lines, or electrical lines that lie within our easements or our streets. But we also have to consider the infrastructure that runs from this building to that amenity. Without singling any contractor and or staff members out, we clearly have issues with what we refer to as our newer amenities: town hall, community center, library, fountain park. We'll cut the list off there. Some of those issues are related to sewer lines. You'll note that staff is putting forth a recommendation to select the highest bidder here. The argument behind that is based on research and industry experts. One of the products is intended as a temporary, not quite complete ceiling project, and they would like to sell us that again in a few years for the same amount of money. The other one addresses, resolves the issue, gives us up to 25 or more years of service. And what that does is it allows for not only this council, but future councils and managers to prepare for the hundreds of thousands of dollars it's going to cost to dig up and or figure out a way to replace that pipe that runs under the Centennial Circle. This is moving that down the road a great distance. And based, again, on staff's research and industry experts, this is the best possible solution. And I don't want to be misleading in any way, shape, or form here. However, the experts say that in the event that this begins to break down after the 25-year period, there's a possibility it can be reapplied and an additional time frame added to that. I don't want to be misleading with that. They say possibility. That's the word I'll leave it with. If there are any questions related to this, I'll do my best to answer them.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor, we do. JP Ward wants you to know that he is for this project.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman?
Justin, I just want to thank you for your thoroughness and including all of the people that we tried to get bids from and then what the situation is with the gapping. So just thank you so much for all you do. If it's all right with everybody, I'd like to move to approve the professional services agreement 2023-87 with Pipeliners USA LLC for sewer line repairs.
I just had one question before we vote.
You bet.
If that's okay? Thank you, Ms. Mayor. If we were to go with the new flow bid, what is the warranty period on that?
Madam Mayor, council member, it's limited to 1 to 3 years depending on the conditions once they re-enter the system. So we've already put a camera in there and we have a pretty good idea of the conditions. The selected vendor will place another camera in there and ensure that there's no additional degradation or damage to the facilities between now and the time they install it. Everything comes with a warranty by default. The extent of that warranty is really in the fine print that I do not have in front of me right now.
Okay, because that was my next question. What would be the warranty for the Pipeliners bid?
Their warranty is considerably longer, and again, I don't have those fine print details, but I will certainly look that up as part of the contract agreement and also the manufacturer's warranty agreement on that and provide it.
I think it'll be settled tonight, so that might not be necessary. But I didn't offer the vote.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Toth.
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fidel. Aye. Councilmember Calavianakis.
Aye.
Councilmember Skillicorn.
Aye.
Vice Mayor McMahon. Mayor Dickey.
Aye. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone who worked on that. Our last action item actually is about the legislative bulletin or anything related to the legislature that you might want to bring up, or they've been, they were off, but then they came back and they had, it's like a 7-page third read yesterday. 3 things that are well, 2 items, but there's 4 bills that are of concern. One is Senate Bill 1131, which had failed earlier, which is the rental tax bill. And so that one is still very viable. And I had an updated amount from finance, and it would be a $582,000 hit to the town of Fountain Hills. So we are going to be trying, I think the only thing that's going to work with that is a veto, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. And then there are 3 bills that were that one bill that failed that had to do with zoning, basically making half our conversation tonight moot. But 1161, they split it into 3. 1161 really doesn't affect us that much. It has to do with light rail. But 1163 preempts pretty much any density controls that we have. It bypasses the general plan, and all of these bypass public input or participation, which is interesting. And then HB 2536 preempts zoning regulations, design, and parking requirements and such. So it's some pretty serious stuff there. So we're continuing to work on those. Do you have any questions or anything, or any other bills you wanted to talk about? No? Okay, thank you. Our next item is council discussion direction to town manager. Now, I know we had quite a few people speaking on the 5G, and so we will be getting more information out about that. One of the things that was brought up had to do with the difference between, I think, Laura, you said the large and then the small ones, and I think that remains an area of confusion for me about what actually causes the concern of people. So I think we need to get a lot of information and facts out there. So I'm not sure we can do that now, but we'll follow up soon. Okay, thank you. I don't know if there were any other items that were brought up that we would have to bring forward. The next item are future agenda items. Anything there?
Well, on the 6th, do we have enough time to bring up some of our homeless ordinances?
That's going to be the 20th. That's on the.
I just wonder if it has opened up some time-wise.
It's kind of more having enough information to have the discussion. I'm not sure we would have it by the 6th. But it's definitely something to consider, because that does change that potentially, we haven't really discussed this, but, potential change in that meeting. Aaron?
Mayor and Councilman Skillicorn, can I connect with you tomorrow and see what availability we might have if there's any capacity? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we haven't officially done anything here, so, all right. Then if there's nothing else, we're adjourned.